Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at how to write fractions in their simplest form, or in other words, how to simplify a fraction. Before we get started, it's really important that you are already familiar with equivalent fractions. So if you haven't watched the video on equivalent fractions yet, please go back, have a wee look at that, and then carry on watching this video. Now to start off with, I'm going to be looking at this here. This shape has been split into eighths. And for simplicity, I'm going to start off by colouring in 4 of those eighths. So 4/8 of this shape is coloured in. However, you should also be able to immediately tell, especially if you've watched the previous video, that this is exactly the same as a half. 4/8 and a half are equivalent. However, if we didn't know that, we would still be able to work it out using maths, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. So we will not be relying on looking at shapes. Instead, we will be mainly focusing on the number work involved here. So 4/8. In order to simplify this, in order to write it in its simplest form, I need to use my times tables knowledge. And what I'm asking myself is there a times table which contains both 4 and 8? Both 4 and 8. And the answer to that is yes. The 4 times table contains both 4 and 8 here. So to simplify this fraction, I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So 4/8 is equal to 1/2. And we saw that by looking at these shapes here and seeing that they are in fact equivalent. So by finding a times table that contains both the numerator and the denominator, we can simplify a fraction quite easily. Now this time, I've actually highlighted 6/8. So 6/8 of the shape are now coloured in. Now, I can't use the 4 times table anymore. The 4 times table doesn't have 6 in it. However, I still know a times table that has 6 and 8 in it, and that's the 2 times table. So in theory, I should be able to divide both of these by 2 and work out what fraction is equivalent to it. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So in that case, 6/8 should be equivalent to 3/4. And you know what? It kind of looks that way. But just to be sure, let's check our answer. So here are quarters. I'll highlight 3 of them. And we'll figure out, are they in fact equivalent? Well, it certainly looks that way. And yes, they are equivalent. So by working out a times table that has the numerator and denominator in it, and then dividing by that, I've been able to write that fraction as simply as possible. Now let's kick it up a gear. In this one, I've highlighted 8/20. Now, again, I could just use my times table knowledge to do this, and that's what I'm going to do to start with. So, I know that a times table with 8 and 20 in it is the 2 times table. So, I'm going to initially use the 2 times table to simplify this. So divide this one by 2, gives me 4. Divide this one by 2, gives me 10. So 4/10 would be a simpler way of writing this. However, in this case I'm not done. I've simplified it a bit, but I've not simplified it all the way. This can be made even simpler. So I know that there is still a times table with 4 and 10 in it. The 2 times table has 4 and 10. So I can divide it by 2 again. Divide by 2 and divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And now we can't simplify it any further. 2/5 is the simplest way of writing this fraction. And in this case, I got to it using 2 steps. However, if I had known my times tables a little better, I might have realised I could have in fact done it in just 1 step. So I can ask myself, well, what times table, other than 2, has 8 and 20 in it? And the answer is 4. 8 is in the 4 times table, and 20 is in the 4 times table. So I could have saved myself a bit of working by dividing by 4 in the first place. So let's try that now. I've got 8, and I'm going to divide it by 4 this time. How many 4s are in 8? Well, 2 of them. I'm going to take 20, and I'm going to divide it by 4. How many 4s are in 20? 5 of them. And so straight away here, I've got to the simplest possible answer. 2/5 is equivalent to 8/20. So here, I've got 2/5, 8/20, same thing, same proportion of the shape. So I can divide it in stages, going step by step, dividing by 2, then 2 again, or I could divide in one jump, going straight, dividing by 4 straight away. For this last example, I've highlighted 20/30ths. 20/30ths. So I'm going to be looking for a times table that has 20 and 30 in it. Now, I know that the 10 times table has 20 and 30 in it, so in this case, I can divide straight away by 10 and make this as simple as possible, as quickly as possible. So 20 divided by 10 is 2, 30 divided by 10 is 3. So 2/3, here are thirds here, 2/3 should be equivalent to 20/30ths. And so if we line them up, we can see that they are, in fact, equivalent in this case. Now, to finish off with, I thought we would just look at a couple of word problems based on simplifying fractions. This first one here is actually a real question from a nursing exam, which my sister, who is training to be a nurse, got in a recent nursing exam. So, in a hospital ward, there are 25 patients. 15 of them have had their conditions for more than 10 years. Write this as a fraction in its simplest form. So, from the information we have already, we know that 15 out of 25 of them have had their condition for more than 10 years. So 15/25ths of that group have had their condition for more than 10 years. However, this is not in its simplest form. We can simplify that. I know that 15 and 25 are both in the 5 times table. And so I can divide both of these by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. 25 divided by 5 is 5. So the actual answer would be that 3/5ths of these patients have had their conditions for more than 10 years. Again, all we've had to do is use our times table knowledge and figure out which times table contains both the numerator and the denominator, and then divide by that. The question immediately after that one is this one here. So in a hospital ward there are 25 patients, 4 of them are under the age of 68. Write this fraction in its simplest form. So this is one that might initially sound a bit trickier because it makes you think that you have to simplify it in some way. However, this is unsimplifiable. There is no times table that contains both 4 and 25. And so the simplest way that this fraction can be written is 4/25. So I've included this one just to show that actually you cannot simplify every fraction. Even if a fraction looks like it should be able to be simplified, like that looks as if it's quite complicated and we should be able to simplify it in some way, actually we can't. That is just one of these slightly annoying, complicated fractions. Here's another quick example, one that I've made myself this time. So in P5 there are 32 children, 28 of them have packed lunches. What fraction of the class is this? So we know that 28 out of 32 have packed lunches. And that is a valid way of writing it, but it's not especially simple. So we can simplify this by dividing both of these by 4. Because 28 and 32 both appear in the 4 times table. So 28 divided by 4 is 7, 32 divided by 4 is 8. So a simpler way of writing this is that 7/8 of this class have packed lunches. One final example here then, just to round off, where we're actually having to use simplification and then actually use it to work out a fraction of a quantity. So, according to some inept statistician here, 12/18 of people don't understand how to simplify fractions. Obviously, they could have just simplified this for us, but that's part of the problem here. If there were 30 people in a room, how many would not know how to simplify a fraction? So first of all, to answer this one, we need to work out what 12/18 actually is as a simpler fraction. So, 12/18, I can simplify that quite easily by realizing that 12 and 18 are both in the 6 times table. So 12 divided by 6 is 2, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. So it's actually 2/3 of people. 2/3 of people don't know how to simplify fractions. Now, the next part of the question. If there were 30 people in a room, how many would not know how to simplify a fraction? Now, to do this, I need to know how to work out a fraction of a quantity. So I'm being asked to work out what is 2/3 of 30. Now, if you've seen the video on how to work out fractions of a whole number, you should know how to do this. We have to divide by the bottom number, divide by the denominator, and then times by the numerator. So 30 divided by 3 is 10. Times by the numerator, 2 times 10. So our final answer, in this case, would be 20. 20 people would not know how to simplify fractions in this case. A bit of a daft example there, but it illustrates the point that in order to answer this, we have to first of all simplify it. The reason being, we cannot just divide 30 by 18. We can't divide by the denominator straight away. So we have to take this, simplify it to make it manageable, and then we can carry out this step. But it's really challenging to carry out this step before first of all simplifying the fraction.